welcome to this live broadcast from TrueFire. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time zone you happen to be in. Jeff McErlain back in the house. We put 2 more projects in the can. I think that brings his library up to about 32 TrueFire courses. If you dig the blues, you can dig pretty deep into Jeff's extensive library of blues approaches, blues techniques, blues styles. And we've done something a little different this trip. Believe it or not, Jeff's roots are in rock, blues rock, British rock. So we are going to talk about his new Solo Explorer rock course, as well as a new blues course called Uptown Blues Solo. And I can't wait for Jeff to tell you about that guitar he's playing. And I'm praying, I hope he just forgets about it, leaves it behind, because everybody in the joint wants one of those. So let's dig in. We're going to do a lot of playing. We're going to do a lot of teaching. We're going to find out what's happening with Jeff. And the track fades down. Hey, man, how are you?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Good. Can you believe 32 projects in the can and in the jam? That wasn't even counting that.
Right.
You were literally, I don't know, one of the first 3 or 4 artists we worked with way back in the early garage days, mezzanine days. Do you remember that studio?
Yes, I do. You sleep laying down. No, you didn't fall asleep. Laying down on the couch.
No, I never fell asleep on you, and we won't mention the name of the artist that I did fall asleep on.
But we'll mention the artist that brought me in. It was David Hamburger.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
So David did a project before you. Great project. I think it was Slide Shop or Blues Alchemy.
Right.
Alchemy.
Both,
to this day, killer courses.
Yeah.
We love David. He was in last year. We're hoping to get him in this year. But he did bring you in, and man, we launched a long journey together, and we're still going, right?
Almost 14 years.
I know, crazy. Man.
I know.
Lots gone down. Jeff has, he's playing festivals. He's touring the globe. He has a new album out. In fact, I'm going to get this out of the way because people complain that I don't do this quick enough. Let's quickly do housekeeping, okay? Number 1. Underneath the video, you'll see a pre-order link and a promo code. That promo code is worth 25% off anything and everything. You want to put everything in Jeff's library in your cart, you can use that code, save 25% off. But you can also pre-order any of the 2 courses we're going to talk about today with JMAC Live is your code. That's underneath the video. What's also underneath the video is the link to today's trivia question. Please do not answer that trivia question in the chat feed, because then you give it away. Then everyone has the correct answer. It lowers your odds, okay? What you do is you click on the link and you answer it, on the webpage that link takes you to. Here's the question. Who both played on and produced Jeff's latest album? Who both played on and produced Jeff McErlain's latest album now, right? You type your answer there. We'll pull a winner at the end of this broadcast and give you a $100 gift card, TrueFire. The other thing I would ask you to do, housekeeping-wise, is let us know where you're tuned in from. We'll shout out. I know you have fans and students literally all around the globe.
I do.
Every hemisphere, every continent.
Pretty much.
It's insane.
It is insane.
So shout out, and we'll shout back. We also love, tell us what time it is, wherever you're tuned in from.
Oh, okay.
I always get a kick out of
here?
I always get a kick. What time is it here? It is 3:15. We started a little late. Mm-hmm. Sorry, but we were eating.
Is that my coffee floating around? I'll take my coffee.
They brought me my coffee.
Where's my coffee?
Maybe Tommy can have the guys bring it to you.
Thanks.
So look, let's dig in and tell him, what course do you want to talk about first?
Let's talk about the Soloing Explorer.
Okay.
And what I really like about, thank you so much. Oat milk cortado. Oat milk cortado. All right. So this course, I'm really happy to make this course. It's mostly rock and roll stuff, like rock stuff. And I grew up being a metal guitar player and a rock guitar player. Huge fan of Sabbath. And Ozzy was a huge influence. Randy Rhoads, Jake Lee, and all those guys. But the real guys for me were, Jimmy Page and Brian May, Eric Clapton. But metal guys. It was played in metal bands for years. Actually, a thrash band, which is pretty funny when I look at it now. But hey, I learned a lot. But when I was going over these sort of things, most people are thinking pentatonic scales, which is basically the framework of it. But there's a lot of things we can explore, and that's what the course is about. I kind of look at it as like we're doing a lesson together, which I really liked about this, as opposed to a specific, like, play this lick. I mean, I do a solo, but I feel like the solo is almost secondary to the content of what we can put together to give you more, explore some options as to what you can play on these songs that make it sound really good, or like a pro, or the way I think about it.
Yeah.
And some of these things could be seen as modal, but I don't like thinking about modes because I find modes make me sound very modey, like scaly, you know what I mean? Like jam bandy, or I don't know. No. And my favorite players don't do that. It's, I've had that conversation with a fellow TrueFire friend, Jason Laughlin, and I was saying when I was working on the code, the course, I'm like, what kind of a mode thing? He's like, you don't think about modes, do you? And I'm like, no, that's the point of the course. So we kind of had the same discussion that most players I know don't even. I'm not saying you don't need to know modes, but I'm saying when I look at a chord progression, I look at it as a holistic sort of thing and say, what do I need to get at the right time to get the chord progression?
Well, let's give them what we loved about this curriculum Jeff brought in is it simulates how most of us learn. When we're with a buddy or a friend or a teacher, we sit across from them. There's an exchange of ideas, and then we pick the ideas we like the best and we craft a solo from them. So pick any track and show them that part.
Sure. There's the first track. It's a very common chord progression you come across. Apparently, I'm not trying to act like I didn't know. It's the same basically thing as Kenny Wayne Shepherd's Blue on Black, which is Badge and Sweet Home Alabama, and this chord progression of D to G, to C add 9 or to G. And there's always this kind of battle like on things use forums. Is Sweet Home Alabama in G or is it in D?
Right.
And the answer is yes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what I do is show you how to play, we can run the track and minor pentatonic, major pentatonic, Mixolydian, dominant pentatonic, and then chord tones.
Cool.
So it's this thing that hold together. So if you want to
and do it in the way you're doing it on the course.
Okay, cool.
Don't do the performance yet. Just teach us some nuggets. Let's explore what's possible.
Okay, so first thing I talk about is a D minor pentatonic, and you're going to mess with your third. You're going to tweak a little bit to get that bluesy sound.
Cool. Tommy?
So the idea there, straight minor pentatonic just doesn't really sound that great. Because you're sitting at that, you have that flatted third, and our overall chord progression is a D major, which has an F sharp to it. But to get that cool blues rock sound, you want to think a bit minor, but we really have to address the third in some way. So. So I want to bend it, and I want to keep the bend in motion until I get to my next pitch. Okay, so the trick on that kind of thing is we're bending that flat 3 and we're alluding to the natural 3, which would be D, right? But I'm never quite getting to it. But the trick is you have to keep the bend in motion the whole time. If you stop, you just sound like you hit a bad note and it gets sour. So the idea is to keep the bend, and you have to practice all these things with intent, and I did, and I recommend you do, and I think anybody who does this well did as well. Like, so where does it, you have to do the timing just right. Because if I get to it too soon, you know what I mean? So it works on the tempo of the song, or how fast I want the lick to be, how quickly I do the bend. But I don't actually quite get to the natural third clearly yet. Right? I'm just alluding to it and dancing around it. And most of you guys might do this already, but the trick that I found a lot of students don't do is everywhere on the neck. You know, like, where is it everywhere? Right? That was really a kind of a cool thing. And when you isolate those ideas, it makes you just a much hipper player right off the bat.
Cool. So what you do on the course, on this Solo Explorer Rock course, is you'll go through a lot of these different explorations, kind of analyze the track, what's happening, and how some ideas for constructing a solo.
Yeah.
And it's not about using all of those ideas, right? It's about picking the ones that, that you're feeling at the moment and then playing a solo over it. So do us a favor, let the track run just a little bit so they can hear exactly what that track sounds like without playing over it. And then play a solo, pick whatever you want.
There you go.
What would be the best way? We'll play, we'll do a couple of these.
Yeah.
But what would be the best way for a student to work with the course, in your opinion?
Oh, well, I would take one idea at a time. Because a course like this, or any kind of course, or anything you learn, it's really easy to get overwhelmed. So, like right there, I had mixed major pentatonic, minor pentatonic, a dominant pentatonic scale, some mixed Lydian, and if you try to think about all that stuff at once, you're not going to get any of it down. So like I said, that just taking that flat third tweak and then we'll do a flat 7 tweak, and then you start experimenting with major pentatonic and hear how that sounds. And it can sound, say, very Allman Brothers-like. So what's awesome about that is whether you're hearing somebody else play and learning other people's solos are huge, ahead of time you kind of know what's going on. You may not know the exact notes, but this is one thing it's working your ear as well. So by just exploring those sounds, you just get them in your head. So when I hear somebody do, over that range, I know, besides Dickie Betts, I know immediately that that's major pentatonic, right?
Right.
And if I hear this, like, I hear that's mixed Lydian, and it kind of reminds me of Jeff Beck a little bit, or certain things that I've heard growing up. I'm like, oh yeah, that's Freeway Jam, and boom, so that's, I've identified these sounds, and I attach them to songs, but now I'm at the point where I hear it, and okay, well, it's major pentatonic, he went to minor pentatonic. And the funny thing is by demystifying it, like one little thing at a time, it actually opens the door. As opposed to, I love when students say, like, you mean that's it? That's all you're doing? And I'm like, yeah, but now you just have to do it well.
Right.
And that's the trick. But there's a real freedom in going, oh, that's all there is to it. And I'm like, yeah, now you just got to play it for 1,000 hours, 10,000 hours, or whatever it is. But
yeah, well, you make a really, really good point. And, there's this kind of rite of passage we students of, we perpetual guitar students seem to go through. We learn a particular harmonic approach or an expressive approach, and we want to throw it all into the solo because we've learned it. And it's like throwing the whole kitchen sink in. It just doesn't seem to work.
Right.
Versus your teaching is pick kind of a sonic palette or harmonic palette and stick with that and craft your solo around that and save the rest of the kitchen sink for another time, another solo, right?
Yeah.
Let's do some shout outs, man. So we've got Tom Ball, Texas, Chile, the Netherlands, Michigan, Tyler, Texas, Rome, Italy, Venice, Italy, Hanover, Germany, Las Vegas, New Hampshire, north of Sweden, Jackson, Mississippi, Florence, Arizona, Hungary, Maine, Frankfurt, Germany, Spain, Miami, Buenos Aires, Vermont, San Jose, Staten Island, Maine, Bellevue, Washington, Los Angeles, Stockholm, Portsmouth, UK, Paris, Amsterdam, Chicago, Columbus, Ohio, Huntington, Long Island, Seattle, Sweden, Slovenia, French Riviera, Denver, Galway, Ireland, and Syracuse, New York.
I've been to every one of those places.
We wish, don't we?
Yeah, I know.
But a lot of these folks are students of yours or own a course of yours already.
Thank you.
I want to give you some time zone things here. So, Bellevue, Washington, of course, 3 hours behind. So 12:15 when it was 3:15 here. But it's 8:15 in London. It is 9:15 in Norway. It is Sweden 9:15. The UK 8:16. It's 21:15 in Rome, Italy. I have to do my math,
That's
but I
like
think that's
5 days from now. Is that what it is?
I know. I think that's 9:15. But thank you everybody for stopping whatever it is that you're doing in the middle of your day or in the middle of your night and tuning in.
I appreciate it too.
Let's explore another track.
Yeah. Okay.
Pick one.
Let's do that Echoes track. All right, a huge Pink Floyd fan growing up. And I wanted to choose chord progressions that we may have heard before, and this is reminiscent, or no, it's more than, it's just the same first few chords of Pink Floyd's Echoes. And what I thought was so great about this chord progression was it alternated between straight minor, Aeolian, I could play blues, and C, it's in C sharp, so C sharp minor, C sharp Aeolian, to C sharp harmonic minor. It's the first time I really kind of thought, like, oh, wow, something different's going on there. And I think that's kind of fun to address. And so yeah, let's check it out.
Nice. What technique is that?
I'll tell you in a minute. Yeah. Straight blues. Okay, so yeah, maybe not the greatest take in the world, but okay.
We're live.
Yeah, it's live.
It
It's
sounded
live.
great to me, man.
So, what's really fun about this? It's C sharp minor, right? To G sharp minor, F sharp minor, to to G sharp major. So it suddenly gets brighter there. And the first thing I think as a guitar player, and I did for many, many years, was just played over the whole thing, C sharp minor, pentatonic, C sharp blues. And that's a great sound, you know, and that's what I kind of went to. And you know, being able to get all those inflections in. But the first thing you're going to do is actually miss some really kind of sweet notes that are in there. So also coming from just like, I guess like bonehead rock guitar player initially, was just thinking, well, I'm just going to play this scale. But what I started to realize is if I'm thinking C sharp minor pentatonic, that actually has, when I go to the G sharp minor chord, it has some of the notes of the G sharp minor chord in it. And then when I go to the F sharp minor, there's notes that exist in just the pentatonic scale that are in the F sharp minor chord and back to the G major 7, the G dominant 7 chord, G sharp dominant 7. So what I mean is, can you play the track and I'll just kind of play just notes that are in the scale. So I have my C sharp, right? Or E flat. I mean, just that itself is pretty cool, right? Right, so now, if I talk about the real chords, right? So at that point, I'm not thinking about, when we're thinking pentatonic scales, especially early on, you're always nailing that root all the time. I'm thinking C sharp minor, and everything becomes a blues lick. And it can sound cool, but it does get a little tired. And if you give it some thought, which requires that you know some of the names of the notes in the neck, but that's what we want to do. So I'm just going to think about, well, what note, and I can look at it very easily. Well, look at the chord, and what note is in the scale that's in the chord. So I have the B, and I have the G sharp, right? And then my C sharp minor, I have all the notes, of course, of C sharp minor. Then when I go to the F sharp minor, I have the C sharp, and I have an F sharp. But it's really kind of fun when I started going, right? I gotta play the track. So I'm going to play the root, right, on that. This moves down to the third of the next chord. Right, then. But taking your time to see that stuff is really cool. Now, what I did there, after a little while, you're going to say, okay, there's probably some other cool notes. So now I just started to think, well, it's C sharp minor on its own. But when I was younger and I would learn that scale, I would just play that scale and it would just sound like I'm just playing C sharp minor. The whole thing. So now what I'm going to do is think about nailing the chord tones. And first, easiest way to do it is there's the chord, there's the chord, there's the chord, there's the chord. And you've got built-in melodies sliding around. So let's just take the top string, then I'm going to go through the second string, and then the third string. So we're going to get this. Okay? And I'm just going to outline that.
Okay.
Suddenly hearing all these little lines that I can create to make a melodic statement. And it's so much sweeter than just playing the scale and hunting and pecking for the right note and why did that sound good in that chord. And part of it, I'm shooting for the intermediate person who's got a handle on playing already, but you hit sort of wrong notes and the chord comes along, you're like, oh, what what is going on? Or I'm playing the scale. Why doesn't it sound right? Why isn't it cutting everything?
Yeah.
It's because you really need to start thinking on the second level of what's the right note to play on what right chord.
Yeah.
And I know, like I said, it's a tall order to get that done in a short period of time. So if you just look at the chord shape, play the chord shape, I've got my surrounding chord in my scale, which is pentatonic, and it gives me what I need to know.
Yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head here. Naturally, we talk to a lot of students. We are all students ourselves, and there's that whole, that level where you go beyond playing the minor or even just the major pentatonic into chord tone soloing. I want to point out one of Jeff's, top ranked courses out of his whole library is chord tone soloing, which is a testament to how many of us really want to learn how to play the changes. You also have soloing the changes.
Yeah.
And then you have the monster blues arpeggios,
Right.
And it's all about targeting or resolving to the tones, the chord tones of the prevailing chords. But the other thing, that I think is awesome is a lot of educators might advise you go learn all your scales and then analyze, every one of those scales for all of the chords, and then but I think the way you've just described it, which the chords, you don't even really need to know the notes. Just look at where the common tones are and target a chord tone in there.
Yeah.
The other point is, and why we love this course so much is while you do have very blazing technique, okay, the solos that you're crafting using some of these harmonic approaches or some of these principles are, beautiful solos. Some of the best, the best solos you've ever heard are not about blazing technique.
Well,
talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, well, first of all, these courses aren't about me. And it's not being a good teacher. It's not about me. It's about you getting better, and if you want to hear me shred, buy my record. You know what I mean? It was always funny, doing gigs, and I've had people say, like, I had no idea you could. My favorite line was, I had no idea you could play at your level. At your level, you know what I mean? And my friend who I was on the road was like, at your level? Like, so, and I appreciated it because, like I said, I mean, I could do that, but that's to me, that's not the goal of what I'm doing with TrueFire. It's not, if you really want to hear me do my thing, go see a gig and pick up the record.
Yeah.
But that won't really help you. So what I want to try to do is what I do is if I have a song coming up and I want to solo over it, I look at it and go, okay, this is what it is, and then what can I do to make it cooler? You know what I mean? Or what am I missing with my normal stuff that I would play? I might be probably missing something. So I will literally just break it down and practice a specific idea or two over and over again until I get it. And of course, all those things snowball. You'll encounter a lot of the same chord progressions after a while, and the things, you know what I mean? It's like anything. It's the language, and the better you get at speaking the language. And that's what this is. You're working on, pronunciations or catchphrases and things like that. So the slow stuff, first of all, being a huge David Gilmour fan, there's no real chops involved when he plays. No, his chops are spectacular to be able to play as well as he plays. But there's nothing blazing about it. It's just like the perfectly constructed guitar solos. And the reason why I chose some of these kind of tracks that are similar to songs that are in the cosmic conscious memory is because all these songs I think I chose have some pretty great guitar solos in them. And I wanted to say, like, well, this is what we can kind of do on this echoesy kind of thing. Definitely go to listen to what he plays. And then what is funny, as I mentioned in the course, the solo I created was different than Gilmour's. And it reminded me of King Crimson's Epitaph from the Court of the Crimson King record, the melody. I'm like, oh, you see, so there's all these connections that you're going to hear this chord. Like, they didn't create that chord progression. You're going to come across it quite a bit. Hotel California borrows it. And so you're going to hear that kind of, where's my button? That sound.
That's another really good point. That's another big, like, kind of epiphany for we guitar students, which is, you keep thinking that you need to know thousands of chord progressions to learn thousands of songs, but there's really 20,
right,
chord progressions. And so if you learn, for example, your approach to that particular progression right there, you're going to be able to use that chord tone targeting approach on what? 1,000 songs that you encounter, you know? I have a funny thing. You said, you know, when someone saw you at the gig, I didn't know that you could play kind of a thing. We were at the Folk Alliance thing in New Orleans, 2,200 singer-songwriters performing their original music. You know, it's like a gathering and a networking. And one of the performers, I forget which one, was telling the story out. They had just complete, you know, they performed one of their original tunes. It was really kind of, you know, great performance. And somebody else from the back of the room, is that a real song? You know, it's like, I guess there's some weird stuff that happens out on the road like that, huh? Is that a real song?
Well, I got one. Did you write that song? I really like that song. There was a song on my first record called Highlands. Did you write that? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I had no idea you could write a song. I'm like, because you know, like, you know me from instructional video, which is, you know what I mean? Like,
I know.
You know,
I know.
It's
Well, that's
whatever.
great.
It's what people know. Yes, I think it's funny. I don't take any offense.
I know. But listen, a great segue. I'm going to repeat this again because I keep getting in trouble about this. But trivia question today.
Yes.
Don't answer it in the thread, please. Click on the link below the video. You'll get this question: who both played on and produced Jeff's latest album, which is entitled Now? You'll type your answer on the page the link takes you to. We'll pick a winner and give you a $100 gift card. And you'll get to hear some really good playing.
Yes, that's the way I play guitar.
And you'll get to hear some of Jeff's he actually does write songs.
Write songs, yes.
So also, don't forget, there's a promo code, 25%, use in the next 48 hours. Pick up the pre-orders, save a lot of money, or anything in Jeff's library. Chord tone soloing, blues arpeggios. What would be another good one for them that, you know, touches, soloing the changes. Those three really drill deep on these kind of approaches.
What I like about this one, I like the other ones a lot, absolutely. It's just this format is the explorations in the title, like that one I just talk about making the chord changes, which is exceptionally important. And this one I kind of talk about, okay, we can make the chord changes, we can play pentatonic, we can play minor blues, we can put them all together. And it's a little bit more like, all right, now you mess around with it and see what you come up with. You know?
Yeah, it's exactly like that. And that, you know, let's, you know, reiterate what you said earlier. Like when you go across all these tunes and you get all these ideas, and we remember when we were trying to come up with a good title for the course, you know, the best analogy we could give you is like, it's a palette of colors, you know, harmonic things you could do, technical things you could do, expressive things you can do. And you pick a couple, 3 of them, or even just one of them, and craft your solo around that. And if you do that, you really, you know, you're not going to get stuck for a way to, you know, perform a solo, whether you're composing the solo from scratch or improvising it every night differently, you know. It's like a toolkit of, you know, of great ways to, you know, inspire a particular solo, compelling solo. Okay, I'm talking too much. You're not playing enough.
Okay.
Pick another track. And let's explore another one of these tracks.
From this one, let's try the Wicked, the Wild at Heart is the track.
Yeah. I love it. So let the track roll a little bit and tell them what the changes are before you start playing, okay?
B minor, A, E. Right, so B minor, A. Right? Okay, so, you know, there's lots of cool things. B minor pentatonic. Right, so that kind of thing, you know, that's going to only take me so far. I want to hear more in my head. So now to me, this, you know, it's a chord progression of 2 really cool tunes. Actually, it's a lot of songs. But we find that this is, that's that song and that's that song. Clearly, Wicked Game from Chris Isaac.
Yep, that's popping up here in the thread.
Such a great song. I mean, in that line he did, like, with the Strat. I should be playing a Strat on this. Brilliant. And it's also Jeff Beck's same Brush with the Blues. You know, that's got the, like, he just slows it down. That you have Jennifer Batten, she played on that. Yeah.
Love it.
So okay, so it's a lot of tunes. It's actually the same. One of my songs does a very similar thing, just in a different key. Because I thought it was so fun. So what happens here, you know, as a guitar player is, you know, B minor pentatonic. The first chord is going to play B minor pentatonic, and that sounds cool. And I would do that, but the actual mode we're going to be in, if anybody knows, is Dorian. We're in B Dorian. So we have a. Now, the reason why I chose this song particularly, because, you know, we have guitar teachers and people say, oh, excuse me, Dorian sounds like Santana, or it sounds like, you know, Moondance. You know, there's these standard guitar teacher, or All Blues by Miles, you know, So What by Miles Davis, you know, those are all true. But to me, those sound very like, you know, like an Oye Como Vaz, you know, like. And that doesn't sound the same. It's Dorian, but this is a different sound to it. What I really liked about this progression that both Beck and Chris Isaak took advantage of, we have this minor right, then we get to that E chord. I'm going to target one of the chord tones, which is the G sharp. So now B Dorian is B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B. But if I run the track and for me, if I just played a Dorian scale, I would never just play a Dorian scale, but if I think Dorian, it just doesn't work. I want to wait to use some of the right notes, okay? So if I'm thinking, you know, that minor blues. Now if I play the scale, I don't really love that. Like, I mean, they don't play it well, but I don't think that way. Right? So you've got that. You see what I mean? So that it's like a payoff. It's like a payoff, right? And
so, you know, it keeps the more we work with. I mean, you've been recording this for the last couple of days, right? But it's like the tracks are great to jam over. Right. You give us one little idea, and it makes such a. I mean, it's something you could
like day and night.
Take to the jam tonight, you know, and work into what you're doing, and it's just so satisfying.
Well, to your point, and that's exactly it. So I'm thinking a way we could approach and talk about it in the course, and you can go home and do this. You can just loop these chords. Is just play B minor pentatonic, and then when you get to your E, play G sharp. That's it.
That's it.
If you get that together, play your blues licks, you know.
Roll the track and demonstrate that one
straight
little
old, like,
technique.
blues licks, and I'll end on a G sharp and E chord. Right? Now I'm going to do it down here. You know, right? That's so. Now, what did I do there? What we talked about a little earlier. I played an E chord. I just went. Or just that. You know, there it is right there. I just played those notes. So B minor, look. And who cares if it's fast or anything? It's just right.
Right. It sounds so good.
And I'm one of my old guitar teachers who, unfortunately, was one of those guys who. No, I'm confusing too. I did have one of the guitar teachers when I was younger. Before I went to Berkeley, was like, "Here, learn this." It's like threw a stack of arpeggios and scales at me. Memorize these, and I'm like, like, no, it's not the way it goes.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things that one of my teachers had said to me was, if you're playing something, and he's like, I made a face. He's like, "What?" And I'm like, "That sounds kind of corny." He's like, "Well, then it's right." You know, you got to get that. Cool. So if you just do that, you know. For now, you're getting it under your fingers. You hear where the change is. And the other thing that's going on, whether you know it or not, on all these courses, these two, it's an underlying theme, is what you're also starting to do is to be aware of what's going on around you. You need to know when that chord comes. So on a song like this, it's only 3 chords, but you need to, when you miss that G sharp and maybe you play it a beat too soon on the A chord, it's not terrible, but you're not going to want to, it's got to sound A major 7. That's not the sound we're hearing. So for me, it'll help build up your musical awareness. And same with the blues course that we're talking about a little bit, we'll get to in a bit with these changes.
Yeah.
Paying attention, you need to know where these changes are on the fingerboard, but then you also need to be thinking about where am I in the context of the band.
Yeah.
Also,
what you just said something that I think is very important. I remember you saying this in one of the courses, one of your courses. I'm working with for a lifetime now, with the which is the one with Bird Out.
You're going to say
I'm
that.
still trying to nail Bird Out. It's not like it's blazing technique, but your phrasing and
chord tone soloing. Yeah.
Chord tone soloing.
Yeah.
That is like a must-have course, right? But one of the things that you said, and Larry Carlton said this same thing. So I don't know if you guys have been talking together or whatever, but
he never stops calling
one of
me.
his big epiphanies as a session player was he was wondering why, the producers weren't using his takes on certain records, and he thought he was playing great, and it was sound, and it probably was.
Sure it was.
And Tommy Tedesco told him, listen, and it's on the corny thing, like some of the stuff that you might consider sounds corny because it's so there, it's just so right, is what serves the song and what the audience connects with, right? Much more so. I mean, we guitar players or musicians like the outside, inside, that kind of stuff. But the audience wants to hear exactly what you did right there. That's what makes them feel good.
Well, it comes back to that. I like working on chops. I'm not going to say I don't, but the most satisfying guitar solo is the one that I usually. I love Yngwie, growing up Yngwie, but there's things I remember because it's this. But I can sing you every David Gilmour guitar solo and almost every Jeff Beck guitar solo, and they're just even Clapton. Sunshine of Your Love guitar solo. I mean, he's paraphrasing Blue Moon and all that, but I can sing you that back. Yeah. And I'm not saying I'm not against chops. I love Coltrane. I'm not talking about that, but Coltrane could play a really awesome melody, and so could Miles, and so could all these guys. So when you build that up and you have the framework, then if you want to rip through Dorian or whatever you want to play in that, and you know that inside the context that at that point you want to be hitting the E, the G sharp, and the B, you're good. So now following through just a little bit further on this track, I just only addressed the E chord, right? So I can also address the A chord, and how would I do that? Same kind of concept. Well, there's B minor, A, and E. So there's my 3 triad fingerings. All right, so if you want to run the track, we can develop little lines in there.
Cool.
Okay, now, that's, so. I can expand that. Now I have 2 common tones. You have this. And now I'm going to mix that with this. Right, that's, all right, now I'm going to make a melody off of that. And a 1, 2, 3. And as opposed to going, like the blues can sound cool, but that's a whole other thing, right? And you'll find, this is called, there's so many names, it's guide tones, it's anything like that, but every chord progression has a built-in melody if you look for it. And it's the connecting like fibers between the chords. So this thing like I just did earlier. And then you start to hear, wow, it's the root, and I'm going to the third. And then these things, they just become part of your playing and you like the fiber of your playing. And then you seek them out, because then when you hear somebody just whipping blues over the whole thing, you're like,
exactly.
Like, wow, you're just like leaving money on the table.
Right. Right.
As Grissom said that.
Yeah.
Leaving money on the table. Yeah. So, and it's totally that, And then you know, you talk about someone like Larry, like, you know, it's he thinks about triads all the time and hitting the right notes, and his course is all about triads. So he can play all these advanced things, but it still comes down to kind of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and he talks about he calls it common tones. Find exactly
Common
what
tones,
you
yep.
said.
High
Find
tones, common tones.
the chord tones that are common across that progression.
Yeah.
So some more shout outs, fans of yours from San Diego, Vancouver. I love Vancouver. I lived there for 3 years. So, hey, Vancouver.
On a beach, right?
On the beaches of Vancouver Island, actually. In a hut we built out of driftwood, if you really want to know. True. Eating kelp and wild scallions.
No, thank you.
Mexico, Toronto, Spokane, Tucson, Arizona, Osmond, Switzerland, Austin, Texas, New Zealand, London, Castlegar, British Columbia, Bilbao, Sydney, Australia, and South Africa. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Thank you.
We love the support. Hey, and speaking of support, if you're digging, if you learned one cool thing, if you've listened to one thing that you said, wow, that sounds cool, you see that little thumbs up underneath the video? See that little thumbs up? Just click that. There we go. And I will force Jeff to play we're going to talk about the blues course now. I've been waiting for this one for I'm going to have to put down Bird Out to dig into this.
You're going to retire that. Yeah.
And then after we do the blues thing, we'll answer some questions. So I've already got a few questions, but if you have any questions about either Solo Explorer Rock or this next course, stick them in there. Ali will compile them, and we'll try to answer as many of them as possible.
Good.
Cool?
Okay, cool. Yeah.
All right. So this is the one I personally have been waiting for. This course is personally my course. Okay?
It's called Brad Winko's.
Yes. It's Take 5 Uptown Blues Soloing. Why don't you tell them what this is about?
Okay, well, it's for people who feel pretty confident in playing a regular old 12-bar blues, which is... Like, that's a ridiculous statement because I'm still
I know, because
I'm still working,
don't feel
I'm still working on playing over a 12
Right.
bar as well as, even some of my good friends do, So but you're going to come across a gig. The thing I dislike most if I go to a blues gig or play with a blues band is if it's 12-bar shuffle every night. Like, I just want to shoot myself because there's so many different options and things we can do. So what I do in this course is introduce some pretty standard, nothing you haven't heard, but maybe something you haven't thought about working on. So blues tunes with some different changes that are pretty standard. Like one of the first ones I do, it's just a C blues, but instead of a 5 chord, we put in a flat 7 chord. So if I'm in C, that's that first one.
How about just roll the track and then play the change, call out and play the changes before you play the solo.
1, 2, 3, 4.
C. C7, F, or F9. C7. B flat 7. F. Right, so it's just, I'm replacing my 5 chord on bar 9 with a flat 7 chord. Flat, so it's B flat. So already, my ear, if I'm watching, if I'm playing, I'm like, oh, like a little bit of a change up and a little bit of a break. That's stuff that's not so much this one, but, great record. Tore Down House by Scott Henderson.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
some of his, he's always, can't say some of his best playing.
That's right.
He's always got his best playing. He's a huge Scott Henderson fan. Dolomite, the first song on that record's got that great head. This solo section does the same thing as that. So I'm trying to think of songs that in the lexicon of us guitar nerds. So Dolomite does that. I think it's an A blues, right? So just do instead of...
Not sure, but...
And whatever, I can't remember. It could be an E blues, but they're replacing the 5 chord. He's replacing it with a flat 7.
So, I mean, just taking that basic, simple little tweak headed to your local blues jam and call that out is already going to be a refresher right there.
Yeah, I mean-
and now show them how they're going to solo.
Hopefully the guys will know how to do it. But yeah,
Right.
so I'm going to play really simple. It's going to play the chord changes.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to use the same concept as we discussed before of, okay, I don't know how to play the chord changes, so I'm going to think about some shapes and just play out of the shapes.
Beautiful.
Okay. And it's not caged.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Simple. All right. Now,
So walk us through.
sure.
Now that, I mean, from even the rock course, all those teachings
Yeah.
are kind of applicable here as well. So
Yeah.
show us.
Okay, now, do I think about it that way? At one point, I did, and you know, truth be told, if I'm playing in a key that I don't love, like A flat, you know what I mean? Like I'll be honest, like I'm not as fluent in A flat as I am in A. So if there's something that weird that comes, and I'm like, I got to get that change, or it's like a real tune with a real turn, like a curveball, I'll think about the chord shape because it still sounds good. Nobody knows what's going on in my head. All that matters is that I'm making the chord change. So just a little quick aside, I went to school for jazz. I studied jazz. I would not consider myself a jazz player like Frank Vignola, or,
Yeah.
but I can play through the changes. I can do it. I don't have the vocabulary, but I'm not worried about hitting wrong notes anymore. I mean, next to Frank or someone like that, or Larry or someone who's a jazz, or especially like a bebopper, all the great people we have here, I'm not, I know I can cut it. And people are like, oh, you can play jazz. I'm like, well, I can play the changes. I don't
Right.
play jazz though.
Right.
So my idea is like, if there's something like a dominant 7 sharp 5 chord, I just play the sharp 5. You know what I
Right.
mean? I know where the chord is and I can
Right.
get it. Okay,
Right.
so back to the other thing. So I played really simply, and I'm going to mix like major, pentatonic, and blues. And that's one of the things about this course too, is if you just play arpeggios or things, it's not going to sound really great either. So I'm basing everything off of, we have our home base of the pentatonic stuff. And that's what I was saying initially about you kind of feel a little comfortable with your pentatonic scales. And then how we can tweak those things and outline the chords to get a little bit deeper, but still always home based on pentatonic. All right, so I kind of did. So right there, it's a C major pentatonic, major pentatonic. There's my C and my E and my G for my C chord, right? Then I went to my 4 chord. Now that sounds like a scale, which it is, but really what I played, a bunch of ways to look at it, and that's another cool thing. There's many ways to look at something. So right here, I'm playing an F9, and what this is an F9 arpeggio, actually. It is also a C minor pentatonic scale with a natural 6 as opposed to a flat 7. So, and if you're familiar with that sound, that's, B.B. King and Peter Green and Robin Ford and these guys. It's that sweeter sort of blues sound where you don't have that, you have, right? B.B.'s.
Yep.
As opposed to, it's very
Right.
different. That one note creates the whole different thing. So check it out. So that sounds great on the 1 chord, but the 4 chord, that scale is an F9 arpeggio. So that scale is the absolute perfect notes. You cannot go wrong playing that scale over your 4 chord in any blues, anywhere, at any time. Unless it's a minor chord.
There you go.
So there I'm thinking about that, and I think the shape, well, there's F7, and I went. F7, then back to something like that, yeah. So I'm back there missing some strings there. Now, when I go to my 5 chord, I just played B flat 7. Then back to that same kind of idea again. Yeah, what am I doing? Back to the 1 chord again. So I just, simply went through the changes. But what I did was I saw the changes ahead of time, and I've thought about it. And play really simply. Like, you can rip over this stuff. And what I suggest in my blues arpeggio course is, I could sit here and do, do all my arpeggios in position, which you want to be able to do. And that's fun for kind of adding some speed and all that. But just targeting the chord tones and thinking like just boiling it down to its smallest section. You can cut the changes. Sound really
Beautiful.
good. Yeah.
Pick another track off.
I like the one that we started with.
Okay, cool.
And that's it's very common changes. It's a song called I'll Survive. But it's an 8-bar blues with a 1-6-2-5-1 turnaround. And we've got some changes. So if you want to run it, I'll call through the changes.
Okay,
Right.
beautiful.
One, two, three.
You have G, G7, C major, C minor, G, E7, A7, D7, back to G7, turn around. Now you get those changes. Right? So that exists in all the chords.
Beautiful.
And I did this one, and I'm really happy to talk about it because if you go to my In the Jam, you can mix this track. This is from In the Jam. And I did that on purpose because, I didn't get a chance to, but I played on it and said, well, here I would do this, but here I'm actually showing you,
how you're doing it.
digging deep in how I did it. And I was happy I had a few students and people at the chorus were like, I really like some of the blues ones on that so we can kind of dig into it. All right, so if I look, once again, using this kind of idea, G major, right, to G7. And then we have C major, or C7, to C minor 7, right? And then back to the G. Here's my 1-6-2-5-1. I can do, that there. All right, so if I look at these lines that I can create, I have G from my root of my G major chord, F to the flat 7 of my G7 chord, E, which is my third of my C chord, to the E flat for the C minor, to the 5th of the G chord. And my next chord is the 1-6-2-5-1 so I have an E7. I could stay on that because it's the flat 7 of my, here's my D, E7 chord. Next chord is A, D7. So I went, and that covered the whole thing. So as opposed to just playing blues over the whole thing or playing a blues scale, there's nothing wrong with that. Sounds great. And I do that to give an answer to this. I think if you outline every chord change, I get a little tired of it. I want to hear the mix of the two. So what I try to do in the chorus is like, okay, I'm just going to ignore the chord changes here and play some blues, and then I'm going to come back and nail a chord change.
Yeah.
Because it's important. I think I talked about it in the course. I was playing a gig with Robin, and Fool's Paradise that he does on one of his records that Charles Brown too.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of cool changes. He did a lot of substitute changes, and he would always say, "Oh, yeah, take a solo on it." And soloing after him was always like, "Really? Come on!" So And, I was trying to be a little more sophisticated. Oh, it's
Yeah.
Robin,
Right.
And then I'm like, I said to him, like, how are you thinking about this? He's like, just play blues.
Mm-hmm.
And it woke me up again, like, oh yeah, of course. Like hitting all those changes just sounds stupid.
Yeah.
Unless you want to hit one or two of them here and there. But if you try to do all of them, it sounds very exercise-like. It doesn't sound like the blues.
Right. Sounds a little contrived.
Exactly.
Right? Trying
yeah.
too hard.
Yeah, trying too hard and then really predictable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. So let's pick one more tune from this course is called Take 5, Uptown Blues Soloing.
Right.
There's a really beefy kind of primer on how you would approach these tunes with more sophisticated changes. And then there's 5 tracks. Each one adds another level of sophistication in terms of the changes, right? Thus adding little more sophistication in how you might approach.
Yeah.
Pick another one.
Let's choose. Tom, you got the slow one up. Nobody's Business But My Own.
Yeah, I can pull that up.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Now, a lot of the songs in this course are slow, except for the first one. And I did that on purpose because I wanted you to be able to play through the changes. And a fast tempo. I chose the first one fast because that was just one quick chord. But a lot of these things, we're doing a number of 1-6-2-5-1s. We're doing a few diminished seventh arpeggios, and so if it goes by really fast, like you're not really getting much out of it. So I picked a lot of slow tunes.
Cool.
So we can really concentrate. Now this one is an old tune, Nobody's Business But My Own, and there's a lot of versions of it. The one that really struck me as one of the first ones I heard was from an Otis Spann record. And Otis Spann played piano for Muddy Waters. But he did one of my favorite records of all time with Fleetwood Mac. So it's got Peter Green and Danny Kerwin on it. And oddly enough, I don't believe it's Mick Fleetwood on drums, which is kind of like, oh, thanks, right? But Peter Green plays great, and Danny Kerwin plays amazingly on this record. And it's super slow. And this is one of those songs that used to kick my butt because I tried too hard. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll run through the changes. It sounds a bit gospel. You've all heard it before. So let's just run it.
Okay.
Okay. I'll play the changes for you. Okay. That's the one. There we go. C7, right? E7. We're going up to F major. Now this record, he does F minor. We could do F sharp diminished though. Pretty. Yeah, a little less predictable. Now my 1-6-2-5. That's A7, D7, G7. Then my turnaround. 1, 4, 1, back to the 5. Now, playing over something this slow is a challenge, right? So, now here's my E7 watch. Still in the pentatonic. Now I'm going to go to minor. Here comes my F minor chord. I want to get that A flat. Back to blues. Now I might just skip it. And play blues. Now all the beaty kind of stuff. All right, just playing E7 right there.
each one of them killer tracks to jam over. Each one of them killer tracks to call out on the jam bandstand. That'll kind of turn heads from the band members as well as
Yeah.
And Jeff drills down on how to play those changes and craft really elegant but beautiful sounding blues solos, which will kind of lighten your load playing shuffles and minor pentatonic all the time.
Yeah.
We're going to give folks one more chance to enter that trivia.
Okay.
So underneath, here's your mission. Your mission is to click the link underneath the video and enter the trivia question on the page the link goes to. Don't put it in the thread. And tell us who played on and produced Jeff's latest album, titled Now. We're going to draw a winner in a couple of minutes from now, so you have a couple of minutes to do that. Your other mission is, and thank you for all of you who gave thumbs ups. Jeff really appreciates it. We really appreciate it. How about one person out there giving Tommy and the gang in the studio, Seth and Frank, just one more thumbs up?
Woo!
Just, let's thank the guys behind the glass. You've also got that promo code underneath the video. Don't forget, it's only good for like 48 hours. Please take advantage of it. And while you take care of clicking and entering trivia things, Jeff is going to describe my guitar. The guitar he's going to forget, or I'm going to substitute something here for. Tell him about that one, man.
Well, it is not a 1959 Les Paul, but I've, through the strangest course of events lately, had a chance to try a huge amount of them. I was actually at one point in a room with 5 of them, and my job was to choose the 2 I liked the most. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just a weird little thing that happened. And so I was, I can't ever in my whole lifetime afford anything like that. So what this is, it's his,
You were helping somebody
I was helping somebody. Yes, it's not me.
purchase one
No.
for how much?
Oh God.
Go ahead. People love to hear this kind of. How much did they spend on the guitar you picked out for
On
them?
just one of them, $400,000.
For one
For one.
of these.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a different world. But the great experience I did was to realize not all of them are great. So an old guitar doesn't mean a great guitar.
Right.
That's a nice thing because sometimes I played a few and went, "Pfft,
Really?
yeah, like I would, I wouldn't pay. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
or I
yeah.
would buy this and sell it immediately.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
not all great. Had that experience with Fenders too. What this is they actually here in Florida, historic makeovers. So it's actually a new 59 reissue last year, so as new as they get. And what historic makeovers does is they strip it down to the bottom, and they refinish it with like aniline dyes, and it's a true nitro finish, like so it will crack and fade. My understanding, not to the Gibson ones don't ever really crack. Like they put a little bit of plasticizer because it speeds up the process. So it's got a Brazilian board on it now. I put in throwback pickups, and the stuff they do, and I've had the opportunity to try a number of them, and it goes up pretty closely to what I've tried.
Really?
Like it's as close. Well, first, as close as I can ever get, and this was quite a stretch to get. But yeah, having the experience of the other ones and gone, like, these are some of the greatest guitars I've ever tried. And it is true, some of them are just magical, and you're like, But this is as close as I will ever come, and I'm really happy with that, Doesn't, because I can't afford the other thing, you know what I mean? So that's what this is, and it's a real pleasure to play, and they're really great guys. His name is Kim LaFleur, and just great, So
And Jeff allowed me to not only touch it, but actually play it a little bit. It really is a a very, very sweet guitar.
But
And
you're not going to see a lot of the other guitars I used to play anymore because I had to I had to clean house.
had to hawk 'em to get
yeah,
that one,
pretty
you know?
much. Yeah.
But you've picked out some pretty good guitars for
Oh,
me.
yeah.
I
I
must
still
say.
have Michael Tuttle stuff. Those are great to
Yeah,
travel
it's
with and play. They're great guitar.
fantastic.
Great guitar. Not to travel.
I mean,
they're just great guitars.
Right.
Yeah.
I consider it one of the primo guitars in my collection.
I
you
love
know?
his guitars.
And also, we've talked about your library. You are really you really have you're very smart about guitars, very smart about the rigs, brilliant when it comes to effects and the chains and Guitar Effects Survival Guide.
Oh yeah.
If you're looking for some really good sound advice, pun intended, one of the courses we did with Jeff that is still very, very, very popular, even though we launched it, I don't know how many years ago, but is the Guitar Effects Survival Guide, where you basically take a lot of, it wasn't like pedal specific.
Am I on camera? All right.
Can you see that?
That's what I'm using today.
And he shows you how to dial in, how to set up the chain, how to dial in each individual pedal with whatever pedal you have. The parameters, there's some effects tab we created.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Very
That was fun.
cool.
Yeah.
So, if you're like me, I always get puzzled by, how to dial in. I'm always doing too much, too wet, that. But
Sure.
also a great course. Okay, so
any questions?
The what?
Any questions?
Yeah, we've got questions for you, man. Jeff Miller asks, where do you add in the double stops? Given either of the courses, the Solo Explorer Rock or the Blues course, when you play a double stop, obviously you're playing two notes.
Yeah.
Do you apply any of these principles to which two notes to play?
Oh yeah. Well, let's just say, just popped in my head, the G to the C, right? G7 or in a blues or a C chord. D and F is part of my G7 chord. G, B, D, F. And if I want to go to C, that's part of my C chord. I have a C is spelled C, E, and G, and I have the C and the E. So I'm going to play the D and the F. So I went from G7, C, back to G. Right. So yeah, the double stops. I mean, there's the rock and roll like the messy double stops, which is a great sound. But then there's double stops that are part of the chord. That's part of your triad. G, passing. There's my C chord or part of my G chord. So when I'm playing double stops in a blues situation, it's because either the messy ones from the blues scale, just kind of going for a bit of a rock and roll thing, or the double stops would be based upon chord tones.
Cool. Another question. This one from, Jeff Miller asks, what gauge strings do you typically use? What do you have on that guitar?
I have 15s through 97s. No. I just use 10s. I've always used 10s. I use 10s on a Fender, and I use 10s on a Gibson scale. Just used to it.
I almost took that seriously. We've had some players in here with some very, very heavy gauge.
Yeah, Josh Smith.
Oh
But I played his guitar, and I'm like, what the, But look, any of you guys know Josh. He's a great dude, but he's a big dude.
Yeah.
So I'm not. You know what I mean? Like I can't do it. I don't have
crazy.
But it goes back to BB's dates.
Exactly. Agione82, does chord tones mean playing arpeggios in different positions and forgetting about scales? Thanks. Love your work, Jeff.
No, thank you. And yeah, absolutely, that's what it means. Now, the idea, okay, let's just really get fine-tuned on that. The idea of playing arpeggios, the arpeggios to me implies, going up and down the chord, that's the arpeggio. And I know we're talking about degrees of semantics in a certain way. So yes, I'm thinking the arpeggio. But when I think chord tones, I'm just thinking about the notes of the chord as if I think arpeggios, I'm almost more forced to think of like that as opposed to, I'm missing strings today. right? As
Yep.
opposed to that, it's supposed to thinking. Now that kind of thing, you know, when
Yeah.
I'm thinking that, I don't, if that makes any sense, right? So there's two ways of
Everything
looking
you
at
say
it.
makes sense to me.
Okay, good. Okay, hopefully it makes sense to you.
Another question from Mid-Writer 335. Wants to know how this blues course, and you have a lot of blues
Yeah.
courses, you know, how does this particular one different from your other blues courses?
Well, it's a good question. And I think, you know, honestly, I think, and one of the things I owe TrueFire a great debt of gratitude from is I've become a much better teacher over the years. And what I think I'm doing now, you know, for instance, like that one song I've covered on another course, but not like this. Like this is really what you want to play, because sometimes when we were talking about like arpeggios, this is where the arpeggio is, and this. But now I think in this course, first of all, I haven't done anything on extended changes, but I'm talking about how I think about doing it and how I think it's going to sound most natural to you. Like, well, here I'm going to kind of avoid the changes. I know how to do them, but it doesn't quite work as well here. So I think, you know, when you're talking about the blues, there's going to be some crossover material. But the funny thing with that and with anything is I feel like I explain it better. I'd certainly go more deep into what I'm thinking and how to navigate the changes here. But when it came to anything that I've learned, oftentimes it's hearing it a different way a few times actually helps you to really get it. Like I could go back to when I learned the modes. I was like, all right, I get it. Then you're like, no, I don't get it. Okay, no, I get it. And then you hear the parallel and relative way, and then finally,
Yeah.
after all these ways, it comes together.
Yeah.
So for this, though, I think it's a more fine-tuned way of approaching these changes in a really practical environment, and as opposed to like the solo to me is secondary. You know, whereas sometimes we're like, okay, let's learn this solo. For me right now, it's like I just want to shoot for these notes, and a way of thinking about it within a region of the guitar, and making those changes. So does that sound markedly different than other courses? I honestly, as a teacher, I feel like it is very different. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, from our perspective, and if you'll recall, many, many years back, we started talking about how, you know, we generally don't, we think about one particular course and one particular topic, you know, in a particular style. And of course, you can vary the levels, but we're thinking about what Jeff McErlain's library looks like in 5 years, you know, and then 5 years after that. And so each of these courses, while, you know, much larger than, say, a chapter in a book, are like a master, you know, series on particular topics. So blues arpeggios is different than chord tone soloing.
Absolutely is.
You know, soloing the changes. They're all dealing with a particular, similar topic, right? But in a very, you know, specific way and digging deeper on that specific way. So
You've crystallized my thoughts eloquently. Yes.
the which?
You've crystallized my thoughts eloquently.
Well, you know, I mean,
Yeah,
it's a really good question.
It
and
is, yeah.
It becomes like a hard thing we get asked all the time. Well, how do I pick which course? And I think the best way to do that is, you know, there's always a ton of free sample videos, and like, you know, the best thing to do is watch a video. If you like what you're hearing, and that's kind of the sound in your head that you want to get, read the description, look at the, you know, the lesson list. That's probably going to be a good course for you, right? The also cool thing about your library is the ability to be able, once you have a few of your courses, to cherry pick like I do your library, you know? I've been working on Bird Out for 3 years, you know, whatever. You know, but, you know, the point is you can kind of bounce around and focus in on what you want to get out of it if you don't have 10 hours a day to practice and work like, you know, you guys do. Well, folks have really hung in tough.
Thanks, everyone.
Guys, we're having apparent technical difficulties entering and to draw the winner. I know that some of you are having a problem doing that. So that we're going to address that, but to make it fair to everybody, anybody that's chimed in here live, you tell them who played on and produced your album now?
Robin Ford.
How about that? Not
Yeah.
bad. So technically, you now all know the answer, and technically, you are now all entered in the drawing, and we'll do a random selection shortly, and announce it here, and credit your account with a $100 TrueFire gift card.
And if you're in Nashville on March 21st, I'll be playing with Robin at Third and Lindwood.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Can they drop your name and get a free ticket? No, don't answer that.
You'd have to talk to the club about that.
It is really hard to when you guys play there. It's going to be a very tough ticket to get in the door. I see it's a great club.
I like the
It
venue.
is.
Yeah, it's
oh
nice.
my God! Everyone and their brother plays there. It's sort of like a local thing
Yeah.
where.
It's a great room.
But here's how you do it: you get there early. You have some food and some beverage. And then as soon as the guy sets up the ticket box, you run over there and say, hey, I've been here since eating, and he'll give you a ticket. Pick a tune and play us out, man.
Let's do that one with the flat 7 again, that little up-tempo one. I was
Love
kinda
it.
Noodle on that.
And thank you, everybody, for tuning in today, for sticking with us. We ran a little late. All the love on those thumbs up. You were, awesome.
The first one on the blues course.
And Jeff, thank you, man.
Hey, and thank you, everybody, for chiming in. Thanks for all the support, and it really means the world to me. Thank you.
1, 2, 3, 4.
There it is.